And we are recording TPC 140, July 18th, 2020, 10:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Available on BitChute, DTube, Vimeo, VO, blah, 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 all those. I'll be in the top link. Colonel Tyler Morton, PhD, recommended by Nick Phelps, author of From Kites to Cold War, which I loved, man. Before we go off on a rant, introduce yourself, because I will completely take over and start talking. So introduce yourself.
It's your podcast. You can do that.
Man. Oh, man, you're the guest. This is you.
So Tyler Morton, you already said I was a colonel in the Air Force. That's me. Been in almost 29 years now. Started off way back in 1991. Enlisted airborne cryptologic linguist, Spanish guy. Spent about 2,500 hours of my life in the back of the RC-135, representing it today. Old school, me and my RC shirt. Got commissioned in 98, served, multiple intel jobs here and there. The RC-135 community brought me back a couple times. Once to the 97th Intel Squadron at Offutt as a assistant director of operations, and then stood up a little thing called 97th IS Det 1, where we kind of ran Project Liberty, which was support, the JSOC stuff. And then was fortunate enough in 2014 to take command of the 488th Intel Squadron out at RAF Mildenhall, which is the world's premier airborne SIGINT outfit. So got to command out there RC-135 operations for a couple of years. And then was, Air Force sent me a couple times to schools, was lucky enough to, get all that kind of stuff, and got recommended for a PhD program. And did that, and had wanted to write about, the history of the airborne reconnaissance business for a very long time. And was fortunate the Air Force gave me time to do that. So the result of that was a dissertation that ended up in a PhD, and then some of the folks down there at Air University thought it would be a good book. So kind of went into that business, and we can talk about the fun that it is to change a dissertation into a book if you want, because they're certainly not the same product for sure. So that's me. Currently at Langley Air Force Base, the vice wing commander of the 480th ISR wing, the world's largest Air Force ISR wing. So enjoying the heck out of that.
Hell yeah. Dude, you need to turn your book into an audio book. I tell that to every guest I have on here that has books, because my lazy, born in 1990, my lazy millennial generation, man, we can't throw it on during work or a car or something. I'll never crack a book in my life. But if it's audio, man, I will go from like the most like horrible, like millennial, like watching mind rotting TV, to listening to like in-depth histories of like FDR's lineage, just because
you can.
Yeah, but I used the few brain cells I have, and I found out how to make Kindle books read to me, and it's in a terrible robot voice. That being said, I listened to yours, and dude, like I said to you, like I texted you, robot voices can make the best book sound terrible, and I still enjoyed yours. You have an awesome deep voice, man. Bruce Sackman, the guy that investigates serial killers, I had him on. Yeah. He's got perfect New York. He sounds, he could be cast in Goodfellas. Like,
that's awesome.
And I'm like, dude, you gotta. Some people, I wouldn't say it. I'd be like, maybe you should hire someone to narrate it.
Right. Yeah.
You've got the perfect voice. You've got a perfect deep, dude. You gotta narrate it, man. I promise you, more people.
I got this monotone professor voice that just wants to put you to sleep.
Okay. No, it's perfect. That's all you want. You don't want. It's kind of like. We're going way off into the weeds already. Have you ever heard the explanation of like why like runway models aren't like swimsuit models? Instead, they're like rail thin, as opposed to some, like pinup girl. It's because it's supposed to take away. You're not supposed to examine the body. It's supposed to be so it's just a perfect scaffolding for the clothing.
Okay, got it.
That's what you want for an audiobook, man. You don't want some in-depth animated voice. No, man. I'm listening to Creation of the Hydrogen Bomb by Richard Rhodes. He has the most boring voice in the world, and it's perfect. It
doesn't detract from the information. Right?
Brings the information in. Yeah, so
I don't know how that whole audio book thing works. They haven't asked me to do it, obviously, or I would. It's just
I have no idea how to
Ain't
do
that
it.
long to just read through the damn thing.
I think you just got to, man. I think you just got to, because people have asked me, they're like, well, how do I do it? I'm like, dude, I don't know. Grab a microphone, man. Start reading.
Just start reading there.
Yeah, who cares, man? Just put it up. So
Let's learn about airborne ISR with
let's
Tyler.
do it. Starting now, chapter 1. Yeah, man. Just I think there's like a 10-hour limit on YouTube videos. Just upload it, Jen. Just one big file. So, yeah. So I actually called Nick Phelps, and he and I were talking, and I told him about my favorite part of the book is you explained, and you'll have to refresh me. Is who is that? Was it a French? Is it the correct like ballooner? Guy in the balloon with the cannonball went right over the head and went right under the basket.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Explain. So the way you explain it to me, it sounds like I think you even said it. You're like it was like the earliest example of like jock like fighter pilot status, but it was like the late 1700s, maybe 1800s. Again, you have to correct me, but it's this guy up in his balloon, and the cannonball goes right over his head and right below his basket. Doesn't kill him, and then because it's just old wartime, you can just see the enemy. He like yells out in France something like "Vive la France" or whatever, and it was just like you were like it's the earliest example of like brash like fighter pilot ego, but it's not it's not an F-22. It's not we're going toe to toe with Ivan. It's not even biplanes. It's just I just imagine this dude in like a top hat with a handlebar mustache. Like
that's probably not far from the truth, right?
Yeah. What was the exact date? Do you remember?
I want to say it was 1797 at first. I don't have the books sitting here in front of me. It'd probably take me a while to find it, but it was Battle of Maubeuge, I think. And first, that was all new, right?
Yeah.
So there were cannon guys on the ground on the Belgian side, and then these French guys flying around above them, and the Belgian dudes on the ground are like, well, screw it, let's see if we can let's point up, see if we can shoot these guys down. And there's cannonballs flying all around. It's who knows if it's actually a true story, but it's out there, right? French guys I can't remember who it was. The French guys in the basket, they had a basket that hung below, not as dramatically as they do now, below the balloon. And there's cannonballs flying all over. One supposedly goes, basically right between his legs, over his head, kind of at the same time. He gives him the old "Vive la France," probably some hand signal in French. I don't know what those are, whatever.
Yeah.
Flies away off to the side. So first fighter pilot, if you will, kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's and it's even better because it's not like "Vive la France" and then he turned on the afterburner. It's just like "Vive la France" and then just bobbing away at a quarter mile an hour,
4 miles an hour as he tries to turn.
Yeah, I fought in your general direction. That's
exactly.
That's what it's like. Yeah, but so I had listened to "Eye in the Sky: Rise of the Gorgon Stare" book a while ago about just like outfitting predators with surveillance. But they still not even going into that. But they start off the book with talking about the first balloons put up during the Civil War.
Yeah,
it was like the first guys, and like the Confederates were like watching these Union balloons, and it was like understood from the second they saw them. It was almost like, oh, this is now changing everything. It was like a moment where it was like, oh, we are one of the rare times in history where like we are present at the turning of a page. Because now they're looking at us, and we know they're drawing it, or probably not taking a picture, but drawing it and going back down. And that was surprising to me because to me, it was always just World War I, like biplanes, and that was the beginning, the end. I didn't know about that in the Civil War, but then reading your book, listening to it, reading gives me too much credit. Listening to your book is, you're talking about back in the 1700s they were doing this. I didn't know that. And then you go into more depth with the Civil War. Again, in my mind, it was this thing that was tested almost like the A-bomb on like August 6th and 9th. It was just these like right at the very end, tail end, and then it was over, and it didn't really come up again. But you talked about just how in depth this went in the Civil War.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was that aspect, not necessarily Civil War, but the early founding fathers' interest in ballooning and stuff from the very beginning was probably one of the things that I learned the most through the research, because I didn't I had known that Ben Franklin was in France when they first started flying him, that he took interest because he was Ben Franklin. He was interested in everything.
Yeah.
I don't know how the guy did it, especially back then.
Yeah.
But
Elon Musk.
yeah, so I got a hold of his archives, his old letters and everything, kind of poured through them and just started, weaving the track all the way back. And, you noticed in the book that, Washington, Jefferson, Monroe, all those guys in one form or fashion were talking about the excitement of a balloon and the potentiality of what it could do.
Yeah.
A lot of it was, transport kind of stuff, but very early on they started talking about the military application, and I thought that was pretty cool, and I haven't really seen that written much about, in the way that I kind of put it all together. It's not a big part of the book, but it's one of those things that I wanted to include because I thought it was unique, and most people didn't know. But Abraham Lincoln is why the balloon actually got started. He in the U.S. Army during the Civil War. There's just like everything else, Thaddeus Lowe, the first balloon dude in the Civil War, had some connections. He knew the Secretary of State, and he got a call. He got some FaceTime with Lincoln.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I can take my balloon up and I can see stuff. And back then, Washington D.C. is surrounded by Confederate territory all around it.
Yeah.
And there's within eyesight, balloon sight, if you will, of where he took off over there by where now is the Smithsonian, the main Smithsonian Castle building. He could see troop formations and stuff. But he got some FaceTime with Lincoln and said, "Let me show you how this works." And Lincoln was all over it. He, offered up some money for the demonstration. And then Thaddeus was a smart dude. He takes a wireless telegraph or a wired telegraph with him at that time up into the balloon, so he can send Lincoln a text message, if you will, about what he's seeing, in near real time. And he knew that would hook Lincoln. So from there, they didn't use them a lot. I mean, let's be honest, there wasn't a lot of balloon use during the Civil War. I tried to get as many of the instances and circumstances as I could in there. Just like a lot of things, even today, it's personality driven. And Thaddeus Lowe pissed off a whole lot of people, and the Army didn't like him. The Army wanted to use that money for other stuff, and they thought the cavalry was still the way to go, which, honestly, it was. There wasn't enough balloons to go around.
Yeah.
And it just kind of dried up.
Yeah.
And they ran out of money. Everybody did.
Yeah.
But I mean, you mentioned the Confederates. They also saw it. Like you said, they saw it. Now, keep in mind, these balloons, you couldn't drive them. They were just going straight up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
But I don't know if you caught on that, they did start fooling around with that, with the wind, with the wind direction. So the predominant winds in Northern Virginia at low altitudes blow, east to west. So you could go up kind of low, catch the wind and fly out over the Confederate lines, and then put yourself up higher, and the winds from there are west to east predominant. So you could, kind of cruise back that way, which, good luck with that. Yeah. But they did fool around with a lot of that stuff, which, those dudes are pretty brave.
It's always easy to like look back in hindsight, and you can kind of like laugh at it. It's like, here we are, 2020. I have my car. I'm gonna drive to my job. Like black magic to them, but like they didn't know any of this stuff. It's like launching the first guys into space. It's like it's like Chucky Yeager breaking the sound barrier. It's like there might be a tear in space time. There might not be. You'll be famous. It's like, it's like Oppenheimer, like, so this might light the atmosphere on fire, but it might not. And they're like, fire. Let's see what happens. Let's do this thing.
But we're still kind of in the gentleman kind of phase of things, right? I mean, there are lots of stories of balloon dudes going down, and the enemy like being so fascinated with the equipment that they're just like, oh wow, what the hell is this thing? Kind of forget that we're at war. I'm supposed to be killing you or whatever. Yeah. What is this? Wow. That happened a lot of times, and the guys would just navigate their way back or negotiate a release or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, they were throwing caution to the wind and putting themselves out there. Hey, I'm just gonna go up in this balloon and see where I go.
Oh yeah, man. Fortune favors the bold. It's like, let's do this. I mean, it's like a time when it's just like trains and horses, and it's like, yo, I got this idea. We're gonna take some wood, burn it, inflate this balloon. Hear me out. And you're gonna go up there to the heaven. Because I
Yeah.
mean, that is the heavens. There's no first skyscrapers was late 1880s,
Oh yeah.
1890s. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is, I mean, up until it was almost, I believe it was a law in most cities that the tallest structure had to be a cathedral. It was
Yeah.
nothing could go higher than the cross. So I
Yeah.
mean, you really are. I mean, again, we laugh at it. You're like, oh my god, 100 feet up. But it's like, dude, that was. I mean, you were going up there and like touching the face of God, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no parachutes, no nothing. Some of the early reports of, I think it was in France, was just like you'd go up and it was just kind of like, but that was it. It was because there'd be a gust of wind, it'd turn upside down, and it was peace, or it was just there was no way to blow out to the ocean. And it's just like, rest in peace,
Oh,
buddy.
oh,
It,
yeah.
there's actually a report of one of the first balloons, like one of the first, like 1700s, going down in some town in France, and the people like destroyed the balloon because they thought it was some like demonic like
Oh yeah. Yeah.
they didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
It was a balloon, and it was just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Literally like surround it, burn it, like
Yeah.
kill the heathen.
It
But
came out of the sky with some guy in it.
I know, really, right? I know
That's not
it's
normal.
yeah, literally, it's destroy this thing. But so I was gonna say is like it's always interesting. I love how if like you really want like a technology or just an aspect of human history to evolve at an like expedited rate, it's like put a military application on it and watch it go. I mean, I'm re-listening to Dark Sun, the creation of the hydrogen bomb by Richard M. Roth. It's the famous, he wrote Making of the Atomic Bomb, which is like the staple Manhattan Project book. But he's talking about, he's like, yeah, like the first computer, which a stunning 333 calculations a second. yeah, really. It was just like, boy, we are treading on like the future.
Yeah.
But it was to calculate like the successive divisions of not for fission, but for fusion. It was for Ivy Mike, the first hydrogen bomb. And then, I mean, I think of like the early internet, ARPANET, before it was even DARPA, ARPANET. It was to communicate because none of this matters. Garrett, I mentioned it almost every podcast. Garrett Graff's Raven Rock, book about all the nuclear bunkers from like FDR through like Obama. But they were like, there's no point to these things if we can't communicate with one another. I think it was one of LeMay's guys that said, I think Thomas Powers. It's like, without a telephone, the only thing I command is my desk. And let me tell you, that's not very powerful. I think he was talking about like being off at Air Force Base. Going off on a tangent, but it's always interesting how if you go back and look at like the earliest things, internet, computational power, balloons, it's like, dude, put a military use on this and watch this thing go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
That certainly was the case with aviation.
yeah,
I mean, balloons, airplanes, all of it. Because the dark era of the balloon was after the Civil War. There was basically nothing going on.
Stagnation.
Yeah, and then the Army fooled around with them a little bit in the Spanish-American War, and that
Pancho Villa.
even though they didn't use them a lot, they kind of started proving the concept during that little thing. Because they were successful. They just only had a couple of them, but really immediately after the Spanish-American War is where military aviation caught on.
Yeah.
You got a lot of balloon experiments going on. You got the Zeppelin stuff going on in Germany all at the same time. And then 1903, some guys got lucky with an airplane, and that changes everything. After a while, I mean,
it wasn't even in the news.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. And it took the Army 6 years to even get an airplane after the Wright brothers, because they were going down the balloon route.
Yeah.
That's what they thought they had. And finally, they got their eyes open.
Yeah.
The balloons hang on for a long time, right? And we still have them.
Yeah. Yeah. World War I. Yeah. Weren't there a bunch of them on D-Day? Is that just the video games I played as a kid? But you always see these big like tethered.
Those are barrage balloons. They're just to keep aircraft from flying in and hitting the ships.
I didn't know that.
They tether them to the boats to present obstacles, so fighters can't fly in there and shoot the boats. So, those are for. But yeah, I mean, balloons had a really good run.
Yeah.
Everybody thought that was it.
Yeah. it's always insane. But like, not only do these. By the way, if you can't tell, I never shut up. So you gotta butt in. You gotta just interrupt. Yeah, just Tommy, shut the hell up. But
glad you're interested.
Yeah, no, dude, I love it. Yeah, dude, I wasn't kissing your ass like, oh, this is a cool book, dude. If I didn't like the book, I'd be like, I don't care. No, dude.
I don't think we'd be talking. I hope.
No, I don't. Yeah,
Man, your book sucks. I want to have you on my podcast.
Yeah, your book sucks. Yeah, your book sucks, dude. Come on here. I'm gonna make fun. No. I've had people that I've turned. I think I've only had one person ever that I've actually turned down. And he was like, I got an idea. He's like, what if I channel the universe and I start making psychic predictions on your podcast?
Oh, that'd be fun.
And I was like, if you could actually do that, and that's some groundbreaking science, the equivalent of the balloon, I was like, sure. But the fact that you're telling me let's fake it, I was like, that alone, I was just like, no, stop messaging me. Go away. But that was the only example ever. Haven't had one since. Good. But yeah, so like talking about like the early military applications of the groundbreaking vacuum tube computer or the balloon or the biplane. But there's also this like other side to it where it's like not only do the original iterations of all these, like the first generations of all these novel technologies take off from military, just before that, there's always, if not a complete resistance, a complete uninterest in it, lack of interest in it. So like, again, balloons, it's like, so like late 1700s, Civil War, I mean, dude, we're looking at 6-7 decades later. Like, it's not like we had a balloon fleet ready. It was this pause. And then what you're saying with the Wright Flyer, it like wasn't even a big thing. Heavier than air flight, and just not even in the news 6 years until the military gets on it, because so it's like resistance and no interest into balloons, and then we get it, and then we make the same mistake again. Here's another new technology. No, balloons are it. And then you get to biplanes, and it's now biplanes are the big thing. I mean, like LeMay was, well, I guess LeMay changed his mind, but most generals were like, no, we can't have ICBMs. We got these big, sexy bombers. And there's always this like resistance and then full on grappling of new technologies. But it's always, the other thing we talked about in our emails was, yeah, they were hesitant to, I think it was World War I, they were hesitant to use the biplanes because the engine noises scared the horses.
Right.
To me, that is, as I went on a rant in an email to you, to me, that is just like the most mind-boggling, like hesitant to use this because of scaring the horses. That's insane.
Well, I mean, you got to remember the Army in World War I was primarily a horse-drawn service.
Cavalry, yeah.
They were still moving most of their equipment with horses. The cavalry, that was the eyes and ears of the Army, was still horses. So you got this weird contraption flying over your head, and shit. My dog gets scared when we make a sudden noise.
Yeah, exactly. It's hesitance to do that. It's just
And but think about it this way: the cavalry. There's a whole book written about the cavalry's resistance to the airplane. It's called "Harnessing the Airplane." I think I did a book review on it not too long ago, early last year, I think. But it's all about the cavalry's resistance to the airplane, and the loud noise is just one of the factors that they were throwing out all kinds of excuses why they couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody tries to rally up and protect their force, and tried and true way they've been doing things for so many years. And it was the U.S. and the U.K. They were both the cavalry was fighting the airplane at the same exact time. That was just one of the things that they used. They're too loud. They scare everybody.
Yeah. It's
horses are spooking and running all over the place.
Yeah, it's almost there's like 3 tiers. Complete lack of interest, and then grappling a hold of it, and then isn't there some like natural law that it's like once a system is created, it will do everything in its power to protect itself? It's like jails. It's like now there's like jail lobbies against like the legalization of marijuana because it was like we need prisoners, and it's like, dude, that's not why you exist. It's this weird protection of itself.
Yeah,
and
self-licking ice cream cone.
Yeah. Oh, I've never heard that. That's brilliant, though.
But in their, in the cavalry's defense, once they got over the, you guys can't, we're fighting this. This is stupid. We're not going to, once they got over that and they figured, they saw the tea leaves, if you will, and they knew the airplane was going to go. They did try to start working with it.
Yeah.
They tried to start liaison stuff with, how they could incorporate the aircraft into what they did. Ultimately, they lost and stopped riding horses around to do reconnaissance. But
yeah.
They did try after, early resistance, then, okay, shit, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And, all right. So how do we make this happen? But, keep our existence too and use this new technology.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the airplane just got too good and they were obsolete with their horses. Oh,
yeah. I mean, you kind of see it with, I actually don't know I really don't know anything about this. So I'm not even going to really speak on it. Actually, fuck it, it's my podcast. I'll say whatever I want. It's may I have permission, sir? Yeah, it's like what was it? Ironsides, that fucking all like metal like battleship and from the Civil War.
Oh, yeah,
it's like the first step from like these. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I don't know. It's like the first step into like away from these big like ships of the line, these big like wooden. I mean, again, I think it's Richard Rhodes in his book Energy. Talks about like the importance of like trees and like in the UK or Great Britain, and it wasn't for fuel. It was they had these like these like national reserves of thick trees because that's what they needed to build their ships. And it's just like, again, kind of like biplanes scaring horses. You're like, what an insane thing to even think about now. Like, we have to protect these trees. Oh yeah, it was national park, green, CO2 emissions, and it's like, no. This is vital to the backbone of the Navy. And it's like, holy shit. like it's, but wasn't there, you said, I believe it was your book, they all start to fog together. There was a balloon launch from one of these ships, right?
Yeah. They in the Civil War, actually, that was one of the, to try to get that mobility that we talked about before. They didn't know where the hell they were going. And basically, and they made themselves targets. So they put the balloon up, and if there's an enemy balloon over there's probably enemy troops around it. Let me shoot that way, right? I mean,
it's true.
Let me see what I can do. But to try to get mobile, they tethered one of the balloons to a boat that was, in the Chesapeake, I think it was.
Oh, I didn't know they tethered.
So we'll ride this boat with a tethered balloon, and that'll give us the ability to actually, fly.
Oh,
right? Yeah.
I don't remember. Okay, I thought that was just balloon launched. Because that's what I was going to ask. I was like, did they ever try tying these to like a bunch of horses or like a train or something? But okay. That one went in one ear and out the other. I didn't know they tethered it to the ship.
Yeah, so they tied it. Well, they launched it from the ship, but they tied it to it so they could go up and down and use it as a mobile airborne platform. Yeah.
That's so badass. I always love that like initial, I guess, literal, not really, but kind of whatever. But that Wild West nature of like early, everyone's throwing elbows, just this early tech, kind of like, I think like internet and like, like early 2000s, just complete Wild West and again, almost like another natural law. And then it kind of conglomerates into some like structures, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. But there's always this initial sort of Uber, Lyft. There's this initial insanity. And but I always love that because it's just like the most novel things happen really quickly and everything after that is kind of refined. But it's just like, what do we do with the balloon? I don't know. We can't direct it. Tie it to a ship. And it's just like, brilliant. Do it.
Yeah, but like, go for
it. Just that little intuition, but like that can change the war. It's just like now but I didn't think about that. You said if there's a balloon there, in my unmilitary educated mind, I was like, yeah, shoot down the balloon. But you're like, no, if there's a balloon here, that means there's troops below. So in a way that you're providing aerial surveillance for the enemy, because now you are almost like an auction. You're holding up your panel. And so if you're just at your ground level surrounded by trees and you got these big field guns, and then you see this just, this goddamn Jules Verne patchwork balloon going up. Well, there it is, man. Fire on that position. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, it's almost like submarines launching missiles or tracer bullets. That it's a two-way thing.
Yeah,
I don't know where I'm going with this, but
no, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what happened. They started becoming targets.
Yeah.
And once the artillery got big enough and had long enough range, there's going to be some troop formation over there.
Yeah. There's going to be someone over there. Yeah.
The balloons don't fly by themselves. They got a whole bunch of people on the ground, making sure they're full of air, holding them in place, all the stuff that, the ground troops had to do to keep them flying.
Yeah.
They started blasting away at the balloon location.
Yeah. God, I don't know why I like love this idea of just like, there's something, I don't know why, but I have been. Even like I told you, I love these like stupid conspiracies, like those like air clubs. But I don't know why, I just love this idea of like these like 1800s just kind of balloon, just no one really knows what the hell is going on. There's no real grasp on like technology, and it's just like bring up a telegraph, and it's just like, good sir, like we can send back like real time data. Or was it Civil War, or was it the Spanish, or was it World War? What was where they were like writing messages and then just dropping it with like sandbags?
Pretty much all of it at the beginning. They had no way of getting the messages to the ground, which that's been a theme since it all started. So now I'm in the air. How do I tell somebody?
Yeah, usable intelligence.
Yeah, and that's a challenge we deal with today still, right?
Yeah.
How to get information from the collector to the consumer. That's still a challenge we deal with, and how fast we can do it. But yeah, dude, they were using everything. I mean, notes with a sandbag tied to them. They had this little dart thing that they would put a little message in it and drop it down there, and hopefully not kill somebody when it hit the ground. They did flag symbols.
Yeah.
You probably caught on one of them. There were smoke signals they were sending from up there. Like, okay, so I'm in a balloon and I'm lighting a fire so I can send smoke signals. Does that make sense to anybody?
It is, man. It's the insanity of it. It's like, didn't early like tank battalions in World War I, didn't they have carrier pigeons? And if they were like immobile, you released the carrier pigeon only when you became like, it was basically like you're calling in fire support on your position.
Yeah.
So it's like a suicide carrier pigeon.
Last resort. Release the bird.
Yeah, exactly. Release the Highland Smithers. But like, that was like cutting edge technology. How are we gonna like turn the tide of the First World War? And it's like, release the pigeons. It's just like, but yeah, it's drop these sandbags. Like, hope it doesn't hit anyone. It's
right.
I mean,
even after we got the airplane for a while, they were still, even before the war, even during the war, they were still trying to figure out how to communicate from the ground to the air and vice versa, which that was just as challenging, right?
Yeah.
Trying to support the infantry on the ground with air power, and they tell me where to go. Okay, well, I'm going to be on the ground and write you a message in flag, and hopefully you can fly the airplane, not get shot,
looking at it,
do ISR collection, and look down on the ground and figure out what the artillery guys on the ground are trying to tell me where to go. I mean, can you imagine how many different things those guys were dealing with at the same time? And these aren't like safe airplanes in the first place, right?
No, the planes themselves are just
right, exactly.
Like that itself is insane.
Yeah, they didn't have autopilots, so they could just tool around and, all right, the plane's gonna fly, I'll do all this other stuff.
There's like there's barely even flight schools. It's like the technology itself is fledgling. That's like the original texting and driving.
Yeah.
Literally like, all right, what are they saying? Like, stupid propeller, you've got canvas wings, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, yeah.
You probably saw it there somewhere. I think I wrote about it where that's basically when they said these airplanes have to have two people on them.
Yeah,
because we can't do what you told us to do.
Yeah,
one dude doing all those different things, and now we're also gonna have a machine gun on the airplane.
Yeah.
So I got to go shoot other things down, do my ISR, look at a map and write crap on the map, keep from getting shot down myself, talk to the guys on the ground all by myself. That's awesome.
Oh, and the enemy, they also built their own shitty planes, and so they're trying to shoot you down.
Right.
So we don't really. There's no flight school yet, so we actually don't know dogfighting. So figure that out. Yeah, figure that out. Oh yeah, by the way, they've got a guy named the Red Baron. watch out because he's killed like 200 people. What? Good luck.
Yeah.
Take off, buddy. Yeah.
Right.
Your big stupid goggles on, just don't your leather cap, and it's not only that. Oh, and then we're also gonna put in these little like handheld bombs. So like
Oh yeah, that too.
yeah. Figure that out. Oh yeah, it's there you go. Yeah, I hope you understand Newton's laws and really early on. Have you ever listened to what's his face? Dan Carlin, not the comedian, George Carlin. Dan Carlin, Hardcore History. Dude,
I think so.
holy shit. This is the guy's like the definition of a good teacher. You know, when there's like a boring subject and the teacher still manages to make it. Shout out Dr. Seegers from UGA. I failed calculus 3 years in a row, and then I had him, and I got an A. Got into med school because of him. Shout out Dr. Seegers. But like,
teachers make a difference, man.
Yeah, good teacher can make even the worst subject awesome. That's what Dan Carlin does. I always thought World War I was boring. He has a couple different series, but my favorite is it's called. Dude, I'm not kidding when I say this is like you have to listen. This isn't some like shitty like recommendation. Like here's a book I like. Like no, dude. Yeah. Holy shit! Blueprints for Armageddon. It's a 6-part podcast, like 4 hours each. I know that sounds insane. I swear to God, you'll start listening to this and you will not be able to stop. Yeah. It is like heroin. It is insane. Not that I've ever done heroin, but he talks about early World War I fights, and he's like, yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. But he talks about, he's like, yeah, and another thing was, you got a guy in the back seat, and it's like sometimes they just had a revolver, and it's like, hey, if anyone gets too close to you, aim for the head, like with a revolver. Like that's literally what's. You're flying around doing ISR, trying to talk to the guys on the ground, trying to give them directions. You got your shitty little bombs. You got your machine gun that through some black magic you don't understand is aligned so it doesn't take out your propellers. It's not even streamlined designs. Mind you, this is again the whole circus Wild West. Some of them, hey, why have 2 wings when you can have 9? It's just, is that better than us? And another thing is like, dude, you're up there. None of the maps really resemble anything anymore because French warfare has just like Dan Carlin talks about. He's like, they talked about it was like the weed whacker from God. It just came down and just they would just do these sweeping motions of artillery. So now it's just this barren, desolate, like inner circle of Dante's Inferno. Like
you're supposed to find landmarks and all that mess.
Exactly. It's insane. It is insane. I'm sorry for that rant. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, it's awesome though. Those guys were, can you imagine just the courage and willpower it took to do that?
Yeah.
Get in the back of those airplanes. I know there's some. I mean, it was awesome because they love flying, but just the risk that they took to make that stuff happen. It's insane. Like you said,
it's what pushes it forward. It's what pushes society forward. Is like, man, I got a pretty angry rant. That's not even pertinent today, but it's on the other hand, it's like, yeah, man, like deserters were shot in World War I. Like straight up, deserters were shot. Both Germans, Americans, doesn't matter. Desert, you're dead. Man, I feel like if you're just 3 years into the war, how many thousands of days in a row, not quite that, hundreds of days in a row, multiple times a day, has someone blown the whistle, everyone goes over the trench, and then some Maxim machine guns mow them down, and you're just some dude with some serial number, and you're just getting up, and if I'm going to go do that, pretty sure I'm going to be dead or maimed no matter what. And mind you, the medical technology of the day, we're like a couple decades beyond like using leeches. Like it
was not good.
No. So, I mean, not to take away from the pilots at all, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I'm probably going to die no matter what. Might as well go get in a plane.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Experience flight, like,
you got some chance, right?
Yeah, you got some chance. And if I'm gonna die anyway, man, I might as well go die like swirling amongst the clouds, like do something no one's ever done, like Da Vinci dreamed of doing. It is absolutely insane. But it is it's crazy. Yeah. Sorry, I get caught up in my imagination sometimes. It's crazy how they did. It's like that's what pushes it forward. is just like it's always so much easier in hindsight to say like what should have been done or which, but at the time you almost have to put yourself in their shoes today. And I mean, it sounds like dramatic, but it's the equivalent of like, would you go to Mars? And it's like, how can you compare the two? And it's like, but it's the same thing. It's completely uncharted territories. No one knows what's going to happen. There's
Right.
probably going to be a lot of deaths before we even figure it out. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. All right. So take that logic train into the World War II.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same exact thing, right? So in the 1930s, the Army Air Forces, Air Corps at the time, they decided that strategic bombing is the way to go, right?
Yeah.
Never tested it. We didn't have a chance to test it.
Yeah.
But they went all in basically on B-17s and strategic bombing, and they show up in the United Kingdom in 1942 with a crap load of airmen and a crap load of B-17s. As it started growing, we hadn't flown combat with the B-17 over an enemy that didn't want us there.
No.
Right? Those guys. I mean, the Army Air Forces had the highest attrition rate of any service in the world in the war. Most people think it was the Marine Corps, but they're wrong.
Yeah, no.
Those guys in the backs of the B-17s.
Yeah, actually.
I mean, I'm just taking your logic train.
No.
Yeah, hey guys, 10 of you jump in the back of that B-17 and go fly over Germany.
Yeah.
You got some guns on your airplane to protect you.
Yeah.
I'm talking before fighter escort, right?
Yeah.
Go knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Against, probably the best military in the world at the time.
Okay.
It had its problems, but
most advanced military in the world, Germany.
Yeah, they were quite capable, especially in 42, 43.
Yeah, get that Messerschmitt later on.
Quite capable. But yeah, take your B-17 and fly out there and try to drop some bombs on this thing. Oh, by the way, we ain't giving you a really good bomb sight. Do some math. Try to figure it out. Here's the thing you can look in. Yeah, right. Those guys, how brave were they?
Insane.
And their attrition rates are horrible.
Wasn't it upwards of 80%?
Not quite that high.
Well, regardless, the highest.
Oh yeah, the absolute highest. Yeah, a B-17 crew guy had the highest attrition rate of any service, any career field, anything in World War II. I'm just taking your logic, to that next step. They, go get in the back of that airplane and good luck.
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot of people around you because we're going to put 700 airplanes in this formation.
I was about to say,
you might not die because they're going to be shooting these other dudes.
Yeah.
But, that generation, man, sometimes people think it's hyperbole that we hold
the greatest generation.
But they sacrificed the hell out of it,
dude.
I'm confident that if we ever found ourselves in that kind of situation, that we would find young men in America that would go do the same thing.
I think you would.
I think.
I think it's something. I think it's almost like I'm interrupting you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. But I just they did it on a countrywide scale.
Yeah.
It was everyone. If you weren't in the service, you were doing something for the service.
Yeah.
Or you were sacrificing at home to, for the war effort, whatever it was. And, like I said, a lot of people think it's hyperbole to, call those guys heroes and greatest generation and all that kind of stuff. Not all of them were, of course, they're assholes too, but the things that they did and the risks that they took without, really any training. For the most part, most of them weren't in the service when the war started, right? They weren't career Army guys. The Army was tiny when World War II started. They had every job you can imagine in society, and they put them in all these things, and they saved the world.
I mean, exactly. It's not hyperbole.
They saved the world. I mean,
Yeah, I always think about that. I'm like, it's like they literally, there is a technologically advanced country who is like worse than your worst boogeyman. They're rounding up people and incinerating them in a serialized manner.
Yeah.
You have to go save the world because it's insane. And it's dude, my great uncle Rich passed away several years ago. He was 18 on Omaha Beach on D-Day. like killed not like still has like daggers with like swastikas on them. He's like, these are from the Nazis I killed. I've said this
Yeah.
before. I think I was like 11 or 12, and he was at my aunt's house. It's in like New Jersey, and I remember I was like just getting into like working out because I was like, hey, if I work out and I have muscles, girls will like me, and I won't have to, that'll overshadow my terrible personality. 12, full cut braces.
There you go.
I was doing chin ups, and I remember he came down and told me to do, and that, mind you, at this point, this is not World War II, but he then went and served in the FBI for 5 goddamn decades. And he came down and he was like, do pull ups, not chin ups. And I was like, why? And he's like, because when you're running from a Nazi tank, you can't jump over a fence like this. That stuck with me, man. I've been doing pull ups ever since. But to what you're saying before I so rudely interrupted you is like, dude, they dropped out. I mean, Ted Williams was on the Red Sox going to like outperform Babe Ruth, and then went and flew fighter jets for 5 years. Like and it's why are we sending 800 bombers? Well, the law of averages. So like a lot of you, just like we drop a lot of bombs because only some are gonna hit. We're doing the same things with these planes. We're putting a lot up there because that's the only way you're going to survive. Like, holy shit. And the last war is biplanes. So there's no like, it's not, it's not like fighter jets, okay, maybe you flew a fighter jet in Vietnam and then in Desert Storm and now in Iraq. And it's like, okay, it's fighter jets. We've never done this before. Right. Back then we had goggles with revolvers and had planes made out of like what looks like paper mache. Yeah. Now you're in these lumbering things, and I mean the altitude is like you're going at like 1,000% of the altitude, and you have ball turrets with 50 cals. Hope you see them. How come they're tracers? Well, because things that are going to kill you are flying so fast in and out of the cloud. You got to be able to. But I've often thought about, again, sorry for interrupting you. I've often thought, man, is like, would we, Dan Carlin touches on it in Blueprints for Armageddon, World War I. He's like, I often think, like, how did these guys go and do it? And then again in World War II. And he finally concludes, and he's like, maybe this is a cop-out, but he's like, I feel like any generation probably seems like they can't do it until, like, it's not like a mind exercise. It's like not until it's knocking at the door can you really decide whether or not a generation would do it. My generation, I really don't know if we would. I'd like to think that if like, shit hit the fan, we would. But that logic train, dude, go get in these things and fly. Just fly. You're probably going to die.
Yeah. You only have to do it 25 times and you can come home.
Yeah. Seriously.
Oh, now it's 35, Yeah.
It's
and then my interest obviously in the intelligence side of it, World War II is where we create the airborne linguist career field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure you enjoyed that part. And those guys weren't even aircrew. They went in the war to be a supply clerk, a maintenance guy, a cook, whatever it was. Like, oh, Herman, your family's German. You speak German. We're going to put you in the back of a B-17, and you're going to fly over Germany and listen to, the Luftwaffe and what they're doing to try to protect us. Those guys, they didn't get trained. At least the B-17 crews, they were all, a crew. They had gone through training in the States together. These guys are just thrown in. Hey, go see what you can find to keep us safe and figure out what the Luftwaffe is doing. So we got no other way of doing it. And I hold those guys, obviously I'm biased because I'm a linguist and I walk their shoes, but I hold those guys in such high regard.
Yeah.
Those first linguists that flew in the back of the B-17s, just, none of them were aircrew guys.
No.
And they're facing the exact same risk as anybody else. I've got lists of KIAs, POWs, MIAs of the linguists that were flying. And like I said, there are a couple of them that had some aircrew training, but almost all of them. They were living fat and happy in the United Kingdom or in Italy, watching the bombers go and do their mission and then come back and, hey, we'll take care of your airplane and cook you dinner or whatever. But then they were asked to go do that themselves, right? Man, group of people.
Yeah.
What an amazing group.
Yeah. Insane. And I think LeMay said, he was like, right when we started, he was like, we're coming up on an hour. You want to wrap this up in like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
we probably need to talk again.
Absolutely. Dude, I told you in your email, I was like, I hope you're ready to do more than one episode, man. I can't have people on for one episode. I'm like, dude, I have to
there's too much to unpack there.
I'm a piranha. I'm like, I have to pick everything off of you. I have to just get all the information.
We haven't really talked about the book or anything.
Yeah. Not to imply that then I'm like finished and I kick your bones. No, I'm not like, all right, finished with you next. No.
Yeah.
But I think LeMay said he was like when we first came in, he said when people always asked him like afterwards, like, why were you so hell bent on making a SAC this like lethal, well-oiled machine? Why were you always so ready? Like his plan, like the Sunday punch to drop 80% of our nuclear armaments within 24 hours. Like why were you always so? He says because he always remembers how unprepared we were when war broke out. And he said when we first started, I think B-17s, he was like, at our current loss rate, when we went in there, we did the math and we realized we had 30 days until our Air Force was gone.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, he said, like, luckily, just like the insane power of the United States, FDR, just, let's get this war machine going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then just we defied, I think it was Garrett Graff again said, America's World War II war production capabilities defy description even today. It's
Can you imagine the industrial base in the United States turning its entire effort to producing military equipment?
You could take over the world.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
Chevy, GMC, Ford. Hey, you're not making pickup trucks anymore. You're making Jeeps and tanks and trucks. I mean, can you imagine? That is what happened in World War II. Those guys weren't making luxury cars anymore. They're turning out vehicles.
Dude, Coors, the beer company, post World War II, late 40s, early 50s, Project Pluto, the nuclear powered ramjet missile that was supposed to, I'm sure you know about Project. Yeah, if you don't know about Project Pluto, look it up because that's an episode in itself. Dude, the little nuclear how are they? They had like tens of thousands of these little like pencil shaped, these hexagonal nuclear like fuel rods. Instead of big ones, they had thousands of little ones produced by Coors.
Yeah.
Coors they had all this stuff to make cans and stuff, and they're like, hey man, slapped like a special access program thing on it. They're like, you wanna serve your country? And they're like, fuck yeah. It's just like beers for the GI, or we'll make these like weird beryllium, uranium, but apparently they made it and they did it better than anyone. But it's almost, you kind of got a little flavor of that at the beginning of COVID, right? All these big companies were going to produce. I don't know what happened with that, but you kind of got a little like, oh, look what can happen when it all works together.
Yeah,
can take on anything.
A lot of that was to save their own necks. I think
absolutely. Great.
World War II, they were actually
literally saving
patriotic and trying to do what they needed to do to save the country.
That's what I loved about it. It was like they stepped up and was just like how do we do this? What do you need? I think it was one of the guys from what was before it was Monsanto. I didn't realize like they had a huge hand in the Manhattan Project.
Oh really?
I read that yesterday for the first time. I was like, what the hell, dude? Colonel Tyler Morton, PhD.
Right. Yeah. I wrote a book.
You wrote a book?
We sort of mentioned it.
Sorry, man. Like I told you, man, I would just go on these.
It's all good, man.
Hope you got a flavor for it. You got to come in fighting, man, because I get on rants.
This is good because, really, a lot of what we talked about was the technological theme, right? Yeah. And how, technology has just been this thing that's woven so much stuff together over time, and how the military has pushed that and been part of it. And I am always deferential to the airmen and how they were instrumental in just making all this stuff happen. And that's for me. You mentioned it at the very beginning. You didn't use those words, but things become military applications. And in my service, we turn things loose to the airmen, and their innovative spirit, and it's the way that they do it. It's the culture of the United States Air Force. I'll tell anybody that listens to me.
Yeah,
it's not fighter aircraft. It's not fighter jocks. It's not bombers. It's the innovative spirit of the airmen that has separated us from the very beginning.
Yeah,
from 1907 when we got the first balloon. That is when airmen said, we're going to go over things, not through them, Army. We're going to fly over stuff. We're going to be first to do those things. And that's just, we didn't use those exact words in our discussion, but everything we talked about was kind of in that, in that bubble for me, where
absolutely
people make things happen.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, the bombings of like Homeland Japan, dude, it's like that. The shit they did is insane. It prevented so many American casualties. The fire.
Oh yeah.
Insane.
Oh yeah. LeMay killed way many more people with firebombing in Tokyo than we did in nuclear bombs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, LeMay said he was like, yeah, if we lost, he was like, I was just ready to full on take my war crime trial.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if it was LeMay or if it was Richard Rhodes writing about LeMay, but I loved there's like these two just like puns that I loved. And it was like, in a land where they revered their emperor as a god, the only way to beat them was to show them the power of God. And then the next was, when fighting a warrior culture, like a warrior samurai, something, he goes, the only way to do it with these shiny B-29s, he goes, the only way to do it was to throw 1,000 throwing stars at their homeland. The B-20 reflective, he's like, just like throwing stars. He's like, you gotta give him a like, Jesus, man. Add insult to injury. Throwing stars, yeah, check out my throwing stars.
There you go. Right.
Game over, bitch.
Yeah.
Tyler Morton, thank you, sir. And let's I'll text you after this. Let's definitely set up another one.
All right, good stuff, brother.
All right, man. I know I will from Kites to Cold War, I will link that in the description. I'll go over it and maybe we can stick more to it next time. Like I said, I go off the rails, man. I get excited.
It's all good.
All right, brother.
It was fun.
Thank you, man.
Right. Talk to you later.
Peace.